On the afternoon of February 26, 2025, two maintenance workers arrived at a gated, mountaintop property nestled in the hills of Santa Fe, New Mexico. They were there for routine work, nothing out of the ordinary. But the moment they stepped onto the grounds, something felt deeply wrong. The front door of the home was wide open. Two dogs were wandering loose outside. And when they stepped through that door, what they discovered inside would shake not just Hollywood, but the entire world. Inside that house, in two separate rooms on opposite ends of the building, lay the bodies of one of the greatest actors in the history of American cinema, two-time Academy Award winner Gene Hackman, and his wife of 34 years, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa. They had been there, undiscovered, for what investigators would later determine to be weeks. A beloved family dog lay dead in a crate nearby. Love notes were scattered around the home. Pills sat open on a bathroom counter. A space heater had been knocked over. And hidden somewhere within those walls was the answer to a question that would haunt investigators, fans, and family members for months to come. What really happened inside Gene Hackman's mansion? Today, we're going to walk you through every detail, from the shocking initial discovery to the twists that turned a tragic story into one of the most complex death investigations in Hollywood history, to the heartbreaking final answers that authorities ultimately uncovered. Stay with us, because this story is far more layered, more emotional, and more extraordinary than anything you've seen reported before. Gene Hackman was not someone who courted attention in his later years. After retiring from acting in 2004, he had quietly retreated with Betsy to their secluded home in Santa Fe, a city he clearly loved and where the couple lived a peaceful, private life far from the Hollywood spotlight. He painted. He wrote novels. He rode his bicycle. By all accounts, those who knew the couple said they were deeply happy together, devoted to each other in a way that many people spend their whole lives searching for. That's what made what those two maintenance workers found on February 26th so utterly devastating. When they arrived and noticed the front door standing open, they didn't immediately panic. Maybe someone had simply forgotten to close it. But as they entered the property and began to take in the full scene, the dogs loose on the grounds, an eerie stillness inside the house, the unmistakable smell, it became instantly clear that something was terribly wrong. They called the police. When Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies arrived and entered the home, what they found was described in official body camera footage and investigation reports as deeply unsettling. The house was largely undisturbed. There were no signs of forced entry, no obvious signs of a struggle or violence. Gene Hackman's art collection still adorned the shelves and walls. Cash was found sitting around the home. On the surface, it looked like a house where two people simply lived. Until you looked more closely. Gene Hackman was found near the back of the home, close to the kitchen area. A cane lay nearby, along with a pair of sunglasses, as though he had simply collapsed mid-step. His body showed what investigators described as obvious signs of death and decomposition. On the other side of the house, in the bathroom, lay Betsy Arakawa. One of their dogs was sitting near her body, faithfully keeping vigil even in death. Scattered on the bathroom counter were prescription pills, an open pill container, and a space heater that had been knocked onto its side. In a crate in the same bathroom, their dog Zinna, who had undergone a medical procedure just weeks earlier, was also found dead. The scene was so arresting, so surreal, that investigators struggled to process it at first. Here was one of Hollywood's most legendary actors, a man who had defined American cinema for 5 decades. Lying undiscovered in his own home while the outside world had carried on completely unaware. The state of the bodies made it clear the couple had been dead for a significant period of time. Investigators noted mummification of the extremities and decomposition consistent with having passed away weeks before being found. How could this have happened? How could one of the most recognized men in American film history lie undiscovered for so long? Those questions began to paint a picture of just how deeply private and isolated Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa had become in their final years. From the very first hours, authorities made it clear this would not be a simple case. Santa Fe County Sheriff Adon Mendoza stood before cameras and told the public plainly, "It is not normal to find two people deceased in a residence. That is concerning. He called the circumstances suspicious enough to warrant a thorough search and full investigation. Early theories swirled fast. The open front door suggested either the couple had left it open themselves, perhaps because one of them had felt ill and stepped outside, or struggled to get help, or that someone else had been inside. The pills scattered on the bathroom counter near Betsy's body led some early observers to speculate about an overdose. The knocked-over space heater hinted at a possible fall or sudden medical episode. And the fact that one dog was dead in a crate while two others had survived running loose outside raised troubling questions about how long the animals had been without care. Carbon monoxide poisoning was among the first theories put forward. Authorities called in the New Mexico Gas Company to inspect every line on the property. Santa Fe City Fire Department also responded to conduct their own testing. Hackman's own daughter, Leslie Hackman, told reporters she believed carbon monoxide could be responsible, noting that even at his advanced age, her father had been in remarkably good shape, doing Pilates and yoga several times a week, and that there had been no obvious warning signs of imminent health failure. She described his marriage to Betsy as very happy and spoke with profound gratitude for the way Betsy had cared for her father. But when investigators completed their gas testing, the results came back clear. There was no significant carbon monoxide leak. There were no signs of a gas hazard. That early theory, while understandable given the circumstances, was ruled out. The manner and cause of death remained officially undetermined, and the case was widened. Forensic teams combed through the home. They reviewed security camera footage from stores Betsy had recently visited. They pulled phone records. They examined emails. They looked at internet search histories on her computer. They retrieved data from Gene Hackman's pacemaker. Every digital footprint the couple had left in their final days was now evidence. What investigators began to uncover over the next several weeks would transform this story from a mysterious tragedy into something profoundly heartbreaking. A story not of foul play or dark secrets, but of a rare disease, a man slowly disappearing into the fog of Alzheimer's, and a devoted wife who died trying to get help while her husband may not have even fully understood what was happening around him. Among the most poignant and unexpected discoveries made during the investigation was something found not in a forensics lab, but scattered around the couple's home, a collection of handwritten love notes that Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa had exchanged with each other. Santa Fe authorities released these notes as part of the investigation records. In one note, Hackman thanked Betsy for helping him prepare her birthday dinner, signing it simply, "Love you and the guys, G." The guys, presumably, referred to their beloved dogs. Betsy, for her part, had written notes to Gene keeping him updated on her errands and her schedule for the day, practical little messages that revealed the tender, everyday intimacy of a long marriage and, read in hindsight, took on an almost unbearable significance. These notes also quietly confirmed what investigators would soon piece together through medical records. Gene Hackman had been suffering from advanced Alzheimer's disease. The notes Betsy wrote weren't romantic gestures alone. They were tools of care, a way of keeping her husband oriented and connected to what was happening in their daily life. She had become, in addition to being his wife, his primary caregiver. The investigation also revealed something chilling hidden in the outbuildings of the property. An environmental assessment conducted by New Mexico State Health personnel found rodent feces in several structures around the Hackman estate. Live traps had been set up around the property, suggesting the couple had been actively dealing with a rodent infestation. Two of the couple's vehicles also showed signs of rodent activity. This discovery would prove to be the key that unlocked the entire mystery. Betsy Arakawa's computer and phone records revealed that in the days before her death, she had been frantically searching the internet for medical information. Between February 8th and the morning of February 12th, she had searched for symptoms related to COVID-19 and flu-like illnesses, including whether COVID could cause dizziness or nosebleeds. She had emailed her massage therapist to reschedule an appointment, mentioning that Gene had woken up on February 11th with cold or flu-like symptoms, though a COVID test had come back negative. That same morning, February 12th, Betsy had searched online for a concierge medical service in Santa Fe. She found one, Cloudberry Health. She called them. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. Later that day, she missed a return call from the clinic. That missed call, it would turn out, was among the last pieces of evidence that Betsy Arakawa was still alive and fighting desperately to get help for herself and for Gene. No further outgoing communication from Betsy Arakawa was recorded after February 12th. When the final autopsy and toxicology reports were released in late April 2025, they brought closure to a case that had gripped the nation for months. But the truth they revealed was far more tragic than any conspiracy theory or dark mystery could have been. Betsy Arakawa, just 65 years old, had died of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. It is a rare, potentially fatal disease spread through contact with infected rodent droppings. The symptoms can begin deceptively gently: fatigue, fever, muscle aches, flu-like discomfort, before rapidly progressing to severe respiratory distress, fluid filling the lungs, and ultimately cardiac and respiratory failure. Betsy's autopsy confirmed that her lungs had filled with fluid. She had tested negative for COVID-19 and the flu. Her carbon monoxide levels were within normal range. There was no evidence of trauma. She had died of a disease most people have never even heard of, contracted most likely from the very rodent infestation the couple had been trying to manage on their property. The tragedy deepened further when investigators pieced together the timeline. Betsy's symptoms had probably been developing for some time before she died. Hantavirus can incubate for up to 2 months after initial exposure before symptoms appear. By the time she was frantically searching the internet for answers on February 12th, she may already have been gravely ill, fighting for breath, struggling to understand what was wrong with her body, and doing everything she could to reach someone who could help. She never got that help. And then there was Gene. Gene Hackman's autopsy confirmed that the cause of his death was severe heart disease. His medical history was significant. He had experienced congestive heart failure, undergone an aortic valve replacement, and received a pacemaker in April 2019 due to an irregular heartbeat. The pacemaker had recorded its final event on February 17th or 18th, the last recorded activity of his heart. But the autopsy revealed something else that added a devastating layer to the story. Gene Hackman had been in the advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease. His toxicology results showed a low concentration of acetone in his system, a chemical marker indicating he had gone without food for several days before he died. He tested negative for alcohol, drugs, carbon monoxide, and hantavirus. The picture this paints is almost impossible to hold in your mind without feeling your heart break. Betsy, his wife, his caregiver, the woman who left him little notes so he would know where she was going and when she would be back, had died somewhere on the other side of that house. And Gene, in the advanced stages of a disease that had been slowly stealing his mind, had continued to exist in his own world, perhaps not fully understanding that she was gone, gradually weakening, until his heart gave out as well. Investigators believe Betsy died around February 11th or 12th. Gene likely died around February 17th or 18th. That means the two people lay undiscovered in their home, in separate rooms, for roughly 2 weeks before anyone came to check on them. It is a measure of how completely they had withdrawn from the public world, and perhaps of how thoroughly Betsy had been the couple's connection to the outside. With her gone, that connection was severed entirely. To truly understand the weight of what was found inside Gene Hackman's mansion, you have to understand who these two people were, not as a Hollywood icon and his wife, but as a man and a woman who chose, above all else, to love each other quietly and completely. Gene Hackman had been one of the most respected actors of the 20th century. Born in San Bernardino, California in 1930, he came from humble beginnings and took a long, hard road to success. He was famously voted by his classmates at the Pasadena Playhouse as least likely to succeed as an actor. He was turned down at audition after audition early in his career. But he was relentless. He took small theater roles. He improved. He kept going. His breakthrough came with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, where his portrayal of Clyde Barrow's brother Buck earned him his first Academy Award nomination. For years later, he delivered what many still consider one of the greatest performances in American film history, Popeye Doyle in The French Connection. Raw, relentless, morally complicated, It was a performance that felt less like acting and more like witnessing a real human being at the edge of everything he had. It won him the Oscar for Best Actor in 1972. He won again 2 decades later for Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven in 1992, playing the brutal, complex Sheriff Little Bill Daggett. Eastwood, in a tribute released after Hackman's death, said, "No actor was more talented than Gene. His performances were always real and powerful." Morgan Freeman, who had acted alongside him in Unforgiven, was equally moved by the news of his passing. But Hackman was never just a dramatic heavyweight. He brought wit and warmth to the villainous Lex Luthor in the Superman films. He commanded the screen in Hoosiers. He was brilliantly funny in the Royal Tenenbaums. His range was, by any honest assessment, almost supernatural. And yet the person who knew him best, who kept him grounded, who managed his health, who wrote him little notes so he wouldn't feel lost, was Betsy Arakua, a classically trained pianist. She had married Hackman in 1991 after his first marriage of 30 years had ended in divorce. By all accounts from friends and family, their relationship was a genuine and loving one. His daughter Leslie described their marriage as very happy and said she believed Betsy had played a significant role in keeping her father going in his final years. "She took very good care of him," Leslie said. The love notes found scattered around